rifling through those long boxes.
It's gotta be here, it's gotta be here, it's gotta be here. Aha! Here it is!
And bagging those books.
I'm out of bags and boards again?
Welcome to your home for Star Wars comics.
The Cosmic Force Podcast.
A Youtini Podcast Network production. And now, here are your hosts, Parker Kirk, Caleb Lamanek, and Jacob Bosch.
Hello there and welcome back, guys, to the Cosmic Force Podcast, episode 71. I'm joined, as always, by my co-hosts, Caleb and Jacob. My name is Parker Kirk. Jacob and I took a little bit of a break last week. We had some stuff going on, but I thank you guys for hanging out and chatting with Caleb and Tim. That must have been awesome. I'm really, I listened to the episode. I was really happy with how much fun you guys had. So, yeah, but no, it's good to be back. It's, how have you guys been doing?
Not too bad. I mean, I'm back and I'm not in hotel land anymore, so that's good. School is happening, so less good. But yeah. I at least for the time being, I've kept up some literacy. So when we get into the things we've been reading, I'll talk a little bit about that. But yeah, no, overall happy to be back after my my episode away.
I feel that on a spiritual level. So I'm in school right now too, and I've been putting off this math class for as long as I possibly could, and now I'm finally at the point where I absolutely have to take college algebra, and it's been 10 years since I was in a math class. And so I remember some of it, but some of it also is just training my brain to think in terms of academic math and stuff like that again. It's just it's not fun.
Yeah, no.
It's terrible. Caleb, what have you been up to, sir?
What have I been up to? I was on we recorded the episode with Tim last two Tuesdays ago, and I immediately left on vacation. So it's kind of like a big vacation energy this entire week for me. And now, I'm back from it, celebrated my anniversary, and now it's, back at kind of normal operating levels here. So, it was kind of sneaking up on me today's episode. It's like, oh wait, I gotta get all these show notes and actually read all the comics, get my life put together. So no, it's been really good. It's been really good. And not to throw you under the bus there, Parker, but whenever someone talks about, oh man, college math was so hard, I struggled through differential equations, and that was
same. I struggled through differential equations twice.
That's back when I was a physics major, and then I swapped, and then I went to business classes, which at that point everyone's like, oh man, accounting's so hard. There's so many numbers. I'm like, that was the easiest classes at all for me. It's it's like the Darth, or not Darth Bane, but just normal Bane mean. If you were raised, I was raised in these dark equations. You simply try to adopt them. Come on, man.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I have just never been. So I feel like you're either I don't know if it's still the case in adulthood, but when I was in high school, it felt like everybody was either an algebra person or a geometry person, and I was far and away a geometry person. That made so much sense to me. I got a 98 in that class in high school, but I always struggled through algebra. A lot of that was effort based. I still have a really good grade in this class, but it's not easy. It's not fun, but good. I'm really glad you were. I'm happy anniversary. Happy anniversary to you. That's actually why I was out last episode, because I was also out for my anniversary. So I completely understand that. Happy for you guys. But for those of you who are joining us for the first time, I do want to say welcome. And if you're a return viewer, welcome back. You guys will know that we are a Star Wars comics podcast right here on Youtini.com, the Youtini Podcast Network. You can watch us on youtube.com/Youtini, or you can watch us wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's Apple, Spotify, Pocket Cast, wherever it is that you listen to your podcasts, we're there. If you like what you see and you want to say thanks, you can head over to our Patreon channel. That's patreon.com/Youtini, where for as little as $5 a month, you can gain exclusive access to the entire Youtini Podcast Network of shows. Now,
there's actually a nice update with that too.
Yeah. Okay. Legends.
Yeah, you got it.
Looks back.
That's pretty. Legends look back. And also for Spotify, Spotify, but for Patreon users, in the past, you've had to use a few different options to listen to the Patreon podcast feeds. And now Spotify and Patreon have direct integration. So you can go directly through the Spotify app, and you don't have to worry about, let's be real, the Patreon podcasting platform, not great. if you don't want to deal with like Pocket Casters or whatever, I'm just a Google Podcast kind of guy myself. But now you have one of the more popular podcast platforms with Spotify using Patreon. So
yeah, and honestly, like I don't really know like general demographics, but it does feel kind of like this. The Spotify is like making moves to be everybody's like default audio app, it seems like. So especially with how many people I know listen to music. Like I listen to music on Spotify, but I listen to my podcast on Apple Podcasts. This is just based out of convenience. But I know there's a lot of people that listen to both on Spotify. So it's really cool for all the convenience that offers for everybody. So absolutely though, Jacob, you're right there. But guys, I have been doing a lot of reading.
Okay.
So I think I mentioned last time I was on that I finished I think I mentioned that I finished the 4th book of Wax and Wane Era of Mistborn, 7th Mistborn novel. That was amazing. But I went on a little bit of a binge with lighthearted sci-fi over the last couple weeks, and I read the first book of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which, oh my god, like it deserves all of the hype it's ever gotten. It's so good. I don't know have either of you ever read that?
Yes, it's been a few years, but yes.
Yeah, no, it's so good. It's so sarcastic, and like it's funny to think that like it simultaneously pulls from a bunch of different sci-fi like influences, but also in a lot of ways it has influenced a lot of current sci-fi. So it's cool to see that like the way it transcends the history of science fiction. And I don't know. It was just a really good book. It took me literally 3.5 hours to read.
Yeah. It's the first of the 5-part trilogy. Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually was able to. Yeah, I don't know what 5-part trilogy.
That is literally the title. It's a 5-part trilogy.
Okay.
Okay, I didn't know that. So I finished all of Hitchhiker's Guide, the first one, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and I read that all yesterday, and then this morning, like at the gym and stuff, I was listening to Restaurant at the End of the Universe, which is the second book, and it literally picks up 5 seconds after the first book, and I love when books do that. Like, there's not nearly so much catching up and stuff like that to do, especially coming from Mistborn, which spends kind of the first 15% of every book reintroducing all the characters and explaining everything again and again and again. So it was pretty refreshing.
Precisely why I, whenever I do like a Mistborn book, I always put like a book or two in between it, Yeah. But yes, I read the first Hitchhiker's Guide like 4 or 5 years ago. So now, like, I'm a little nervous that I guess if I go back, might just have to catch up there or just read it again. Apparently it's a short read. So, Hitchhiker's Guide is a lot of fun. I'm kind of doing the fantasy version of that right now. I'm reading the one of the books of the Discworld series. Either of you got into those?
Yeah. So I've read Guards, and it was really good. Love Terry Pratchett. But I have a book club I'm part of, and those books are slated like going forward. So I don't want to get too far ahead, but I am dying to read the next one.
Okay. Yes, like Hitchhiker's Guide is to sci-fi as the Discworld is to fantasy.
Yeah,
like maybe even better because like Discworld is both equally funny, but there's some like very poignant moments in here. Terry Pratchett did an amazing job with his work right now. Right now I'm going through Reaper Man, which is where Death, who is great. In the audiobook, he's played by, I think, Peter Serafinowicz, I think. Or, no, sorry, Bill Nighy, I think, is like the voice of Death.
Oh, wow, really?
Death in Discworld is great. In this will relate to Star Wars. They did a couple of TV movies, and they always had Christopher Lee voicing Death in those ones. So Death is such a really such a great character throughout all those novels, but in this one it's like he's the actual focus of the novel. So to echo Parker here, like probably the best part to start with Discworld would probably be Guards. There's a couple of don't start with the first book, The Color of Magic.
You can start with it.
You can start with it, but it's like a pilot episode, if that makes sense. It's like it's like the proto version, the beta version of what this would become. Yeah. So it's like, okay, this is this is the germination of a very interesting seed that thankfully he was able to spin off and change and the right direction. So yeah, guards, maybe the witches novels with equal rights. Those are the ones I've been going through. Those are really good. So like he has such a really great wit to it, and they're short reads too. Like all of them are like, just
very quick,
a
few hours, like 5-6 hours.
Oh yeah. So so yes, Jacob, you can actually read them. You should.
Maybe someday.
The TBR is a little long right now.
It is a little long, especially if one of the last times it was on here, I was like, maybe I'll read One Piece. So that, again, that's a monster ahead of me at some point. So
well, the goal is to get you to sign up for a new reading project every time you're on the show.
That's not very sustainable.
There's enough stuff. It's pretty sustainable.
Like we can keep adding things to the list. You never have to take them off. Just add it to it.
I need to be like one of these book talkers that's like, I read 200 books this year, and I'm like, what is how?
Do you have a job? Like, do you is your job?
I think it's a lot of audiobooks, 2x speed, flying through stuff.
Yeah, that's a lot of what I do.
Maybe there's a person who has the audiobook and is reading a completely different novel and have two trains of going.
Okay, so I have several books that I read at a given time, and I never used to be that person. I was always somebody that had to read one book at a time, and that was it. But I read now a significant 4 books up to about at a time, because I'll just start one and then I'll get a little bored, and sometimes if I want that vibe again, like right now I'm 3 or 4 chapters into Promise of Blood, which is the Powder Mage trilogy, if anybody's ever heard of it. And it's by a guy named Brian McClellan. He was in Brandon Sanderson's writing class in BYU, and they're pretty good friends. But he wrote a trilogy based on the Flintlock era of history, and the magic system's really good. And if you're into a high fantasy mood, then that's a pretty good book to read. But right now I'm on also a pulpy science fiction binge right now, and so Hitchhiker's Guide, and then I also read the first book of the Bobverse, and that was really good too. So super good. But yeah, I read a bunch of books at a time. All right, guys. Okay, we got to get to it because we got a lot of comics to talk about today.
Probably the most in our instance to reboot here.
Yeah, I would say so. We've got 6 different comics that we're talking about today, a whole trade. And these are the Return of the Jedi one-shots. There's 6 of these one-shots. I'm going to go ahead and flash the covers up on screen right now for those of you who don't exactly know what we're talking about. But there's the Jabba's Palace one-shot. There is, let me get my mouse on the right screen, the Ewoks one-shot, the Lando one-shot, Empire, Rebellion, and of course, Max Rebo. Now, some of these are long. This wasn't a typical... How did you guys feel about the length of these things?
It depended on the story. Some of them, I think, they're all definitely most of them are a little longer. For some, I felt that was welcome. For some, it kind of dragged a bit for me. But the thing with all these comics is all different. Everyone is a different story, different time. Some of them are during the movie, some of them are before the movie. Yeah. Different creative teams. They're very, very different experiences. They're all loosely. There's no interconnected plot. They're just a grouping of individual one shots. So, it's very hard to talk about them collectively because there is nothing really besides the fact that they're vaguely around movie. There's nothing tying them together or anything.
Yeah, no, I agree. Or Caleb, what'd you think?
I'm just going to echo what Jacob said. They are very, very interesting. I do feel like some of them dragged a little bit. It felt like those 30 issues, the Empire one, that didn't feel like 30 pages at all. That felt like 10 pages. It went so quick.
Yeah.
On the flip side, the Rebellion, that felt like it was it desperately needed to be its own mini series. That, there's a lot of plot in that definitely needed to be in 3 issues there.
They fit a whole murder mystery caper in a single issue from start to finish. It was a lot.
It was a lot. So, some are, I feel like some are better than others. Mainly, maybe it's because there's a difference in quality. Mainly because it's just a difference of taste. I feel like we can't, like Jacob said, it's hard to compare these ones. So it's we have 6 completely different meals in front of us. One's a sweet, one's a savory, one's a fried meal. All of them are well done, but you're given all 6 of them at the same time, it's hard to pick which one, is the best. It's more like which one are you most hungry for.
Yeah. In the case of the Rebellion one, I almost kind of felt that, you said sweet, savory. I feel like the Rebellion one might have been one of those sushi carousel restaurants where you're just like, more food. Okay. I can do more food, I suppose. I forget which one of you it was, even though it happened 5 minutes ago. But before we went live, one of you mentioned, like, you turn the page, you're like, oh, there's more of this. Okay. And that's kind of like what it felt like for that one in particular. But like you mentioned, I loved the Empire issue. I really liked the Ewok issue, if only just even if it was just like an exhibit in an art museum, I would have loved that. And which is almost kind of what it felt like. It felt like, go ahead and flex your muscles there. But these are brought to you by like a variety of different creative teams. They were written by several different writers. We had Daniel Jose Older in there. We had several different writers that got involved in, were able to bring us all these different one shots. They were released over from April until last week?
2 weeks ago, I think, something like that.
2 weeks ago. Yeah, so they've been coming out consistently over the course of this past year, and they were really good. So the creative teams, if you really want to know what the creative teams are, go ahead and look each one of the issues up, or just go read them, and they're right in the front there. But they were incredible. Some of these different issues, and we're going to get in, I'm going to pull up some panels and stuff like that. We can talk about them. But some of these different issues were able to show, even inside a single one, you'd see several different artistic styles and stuff like that were used really effectively to convey tone. Like, I mean, we'll get to the Ewoks issue, but in Ewoks especially, like, you went from this super happy like family story to like death incarnate, and it was awesome.
For sure. So, do I just want to kick it off with Jabba's palace then?
Yeah,
exactly.
Jabba's palace.
So, Jabba's Palace, not to be confused with Tales of Jabba's Palace, which is a novel, and then also there's going to be Tales from Jabba's Palace.
Tales from the Rancor Pit,
from the Rancor Pit,
right?
Like Kevin Scott comic.
Exactly. That's that's going to be not Dark Horse, but the IDW. Or sorry, the Dark.
No,
Horse,
that is Dark Horse.
Yeah, the former IDW, now Dark Horse like series. So anyway, Jabba's Palace follows the story of the fall of ADEM, the old translator droid. It starts with the scene from the actual movie, Episode 6, where C-3PO and R2-D2 are shown from the interrogator droid, the previous one that displeased Jabba as it explodes and sparks fly everywhere. And if you ever thought, I wonder how he wound up there, this is the story. That droid who fell into a scheme by a conniving con man or con Twi'lek attempting to kill or undermine Jabba's position there, but through a twist of his table to gain. But in the end, Jabba always wins. So, how do we feel about this issue? Like, it's the first one of the series, so it was kind of like is this, like, I feel like, as weird as it sounds, or as obvious as it sounds, it's more like the Max Rebo one, which we'll get into later, because it focuses on like a very specific like area. One of my favorite parts of this comic is just seeing like all the crowd shots of Jabba's palace and seeing all the familiar characters.
For sure, it's been like, I think my opinion of this has changed over time. And it's not even like anything that it's the comic's fault. It's just there are so many, like we were talking about this before the show, so many stories where like someone's trying to kill Jabba in the court that we've like gotten lately that I'm like, it's hard for me to keep track of what is what. Like, we had this one, Max Rebo kind of does the same thing. It seems like maybe like the Star Wars like mainline might be heading in that direction too. Like, there's just lots of like assassination plots around Jabba, which makes sense. He is a big slimy gangster, but yeah, I mean, overall it's a very cool thing. And like, I do love, even though it wasn't as much of the focus, I do love was it EV-99, the droid down in the pit?
Wait,
what was his name?
It's that's the one that like heads up like the droid area.
The interrogator droid type.
Yeah.
No, he was really good.
Oh yeah, like there's a lot of like interesting things here. I feel like this one was maybe held back in that, this wasn't like, ADEM, like no one really is, it's not everyone's favorite like droid. And none of the characters that were the focus of this were like characters we were familiar with. There's the con, the Twi'lek con man, but since you've never seen him in live action or anywhere else, you're like, oh well, he's going to die at the end of this. they had an Athorian bounty hunter or enforcer that we also knew probably wasn't going to make it out of here. So there's some really fun issues and like moments in here, but it definitely kind of felt like, this might be very harsh of me to say, but I felt like, because it will apply to a lot of these, there's kind of just like a plot cul-de-sac. We end in the exact same place where we began practically.
Yeah.
I think it's hard with you're never going to get like any extreme change because they're all kind of just setting up for, they're all in theory setting up for the movie. It's just like, this is what's leading up to it. So, we know Jabba has to be alive at the end of this thing. So it's just kind of, it's cool to see the inner workings of the castle and the inner workings of the court around Jabba, along with, all these characters you said. Also, oh gosh, his major domo. The other Twi'lek.
Bib Fortuna.
Bib Fortuna. Yeah, like all these like character interactions are fun. Also, I know there are many on Twitter and stuff. I know there are many Twi'lek enjoyers, and I do believe Khan probably fulfilled some needs for that. So, but no, I mean it was fun. The art is also, I think the overall, like, again, Khan as well. His look super cool. I mean, he's kind of jacked. He's rich, and he has an eye patch. I mean, like it's pretty great villain design, if I do say so myself.
Even his, what are they called? Even his
Leku, yeah.
Leku, yeah, even his Leku are jacked. Like, look at the muscle tone on these freaking Leku right here. Like, this dude hits the gym. He definitely head presses, like, a lot. Sure. I thought that the story was good. Like you said, there's always that withholding, like that feeling of like, okay, it's not going to matter too much in the grand scheme of things. For those of you who don't know, all these one shots were released as part of the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi celebration. Kind of like we're getting from a certain point of view, Return of the Jedi later on. Youtini's review of that is forthcoming, so make sure that you go to youtini.com and check that out.
But actually, by the time you listen to this episode, it will be out.
Yeah, it will be out. So go ahead and check out a review on youtini.com. I know that Eric is very excited to put that out. And we're going to have a video and everything like that, so definitely keep up with that. But I was a big fan of the way that it was able to. There was a lot of. It's almost a compliment and a problem, because there was a lot of story going on here, and we've said that already about like the rebellion issue. It almost felt like some of these should have been 2 issues or maybe even 3, been their own like little mini series or something like that, because there's a lot going on. But it was cool. Like, a lot of these are basically like, oh, cool concept. Let's write a little bit of a story about them. And they definitely accomplished this, because all we ever hear, it's like a throwaway line. It's like the classic Star Wars. We're going to write a comic about a throwaway line from the movie, a little bit of backstory that was kind of off screen for the movies. This is a pretty good example of that being pretty readable and enjoyable.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Do you want to move on to Ewoks?
Yes. So simultaneously, my favorite and least favorite of the, so I love the art in Ewoks.
Oh, hold on. Well, let's do the quick overview here. So Ewoks is a tale within a tale. Like, there's literally a framing story of, you see the Ewoks together. They're telling stories around a big campfire there, and we get 3 stories. First one is the Wookling's tale, about a young Ewok sneaking off and having adventures with a equally young Duloc child until both of their parents catch them, but then they all learn the importance of not having prejudice and getting along together. Just so you know, it took me, I kid you not, like 10 minutes to try to find out, okay, what is the name of that creature? Like,
the green thing?
Yeah, the green thing. I had to go to like, okay, onto Wikipedia, I had to go to like the indoor thing, legends, and like, okay, denizens, and like, oh, there's like 12 different creatures, that sentient creatures on Endor. I was like, okay, I have to open every single one of those, including that guy from the special edition of episode 6, the CGI who comes in with the who screams, "Don't like walk," the singer.
Really?
Oh. He's a native of Endor.
Oh,
really?
Yes.
I know his name.
I'm sure you do. Oh, hang on. But yeah, like
that guy.
Yeah, that guy, the CGI guy. They're natives to Endor, so apparently Endor is super popular. Anyway, it's a very Seussian art style in here, very cute. And then they learn that gotta get along with your neighbor. Then that immediately, like, you can like in the frame story, it's actually a literal counter to the story. We get was this Paploo's tale about an Ewok coming across a massacred hunting party and then slowly being chased down by the Gorax who did it, slowly losing ground as it stalks him through the dark, haunted forest until finally being devoured by the giant beast. This one is real weird. It's a great. Well, we'll get into this more in a little bit detail because the final story is Peepka's Tale, which shows a young Ewok coupling together her own spaceship and then leaving Endor. The little series ends.
So I loved the art, and what I was getting at with this is like my favorite and also my least favorite. So I'm not great with not being. First of all, I'm not the biggest Star Wars lore buff, so I'm really glad that you did your homework and went and found out what the other species in that first story was.
See,
because
you said, yeah, it's like you're like I went all this like Wikipedia hunting for it. You could have just messaged Trev and he would be like, yes, based on the 1982 Ewoks cartoon, it is definitely.
Dude, like I knew I could have, but there's something rewarding about finding that yourself.
That's fair.
So in that vein, not the message Trev vein, but I was like, hey, I justified it to myself totally in the moment where I was reading the story and went, don't know what that is, but you know what I'm going to do? That's content. I'm going to ask Jacob and Caleb about it on the podcast, and they'll have the answer because they know way more than me.
Exactly. And like, okay, this is a quick question. Like, Jacob, have you ever seen any of that Ewoks cartoon?
Oh, absolutely not.
Neither. Like, I feel like both of us are like, all three of us then are like all completely out of that age range there. It wasn't on television when we were kids.
Yeah, not alive.
It never was. I don't know if it ever really wound up on VHS. Like, never like even knew about it until I was a teenager. So like, just like Susie and Duloc, Indoors or Ewoks of Justice, whatever the series was. No idea about it, but
Caravan of Courage.
Those were the live action movies. There's
yeah.
Yes, there was a live action movies about them like Swiss Family Robinson-ing themselves out of Ewok territory. It's interesting.
Okay.
Apparently Ewoks were super marketed. I had no idea they were that popular.
Yeah.
So it's funny that you mentioned that. So when we were making Youtini Academy, I was in charge of recording one of the videos about that brought Legends into account and like what was canon and what was Legends. And I tried to slip it by the editors, but they wouldn't do it because we have such a good editing team that actually knows more about Star Wars than the people on camera sometimes. But Oz caught me when I was like, yeah, no, the Ewok movies, those are canon. And then he threw his little disclaimer in there on top of me. So he's like, no, they're not. But yeah, I've never seen them, to be honest. And I don't know. I love the Ewoks as a character, and it's just like Ewoks get crap because they were like the marketing character, kind of like the Porgs from the sequel trilogy and things like that. But I think they're adorable, and like especially like you said in this like Susian art style, they were super cute, and this was awesome.
So is that your favorite of the three?
No, actually, I have my panel. We'll get to it. It's the third story arc in this issue, but it's my favorite panel is definitely it's coming up.
Yeah,
really?
No, this one was super cute. I think Ewoks is probably my favorite issue out of all of them, like as a whole. But
really,
I had a lot of fun with it, and we will get to more of like the things this story is fun. The second story, I guess, kind of transitioned to that, the like more horror themed one.
Yeah,
reminds me a lot. There was one of Kevin Scott's Vader's Castle stories with something very similar. That was like also I think
it was the same creature as a Gorax.
Also, I think had like lots of black and red themed art style. This one, it like almost like looks. This panel specifically is like has like. It's like where the wild things are if it was like demented.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. This is this got me. I'm not gonna lie. So I was reading it on my iPad, and I was sitting at work on my lunch break, and I was reading the Ewok, the first story, and then somebody walked by my desk and saw what I was reading, and they were like, "Oh, that's cool. I love Star Wars." And I was like, "Yeah, nice." And then they were like leaving the office, and then they came back in like 2 minutes later, and I was reading this story, and they were like, "Wow, holy cow, that was a bit of a transition that you went through there." And I was like, yeah, I don't know what's happening right now. I'm scared."
Apparently, this artist has drawn a good amount of carnage and venom, and I think that tracks quite a bit.
Okay,
Yeah, it does. Now that you say that, it makes sense.
Like, I love this second story here, if only also because it's great. It's very, horror-esque, which I'm not usually a fan of, but I love it in small bits like this. I do love how they kind of justify it with the like overarching story of how, you could tell like one Ewok is tired of like, oh, why are we telling the kids like, happy stories? We need to tell them scary stories and like scare the pants out of them. We need to scare the piss out of these little Ewoks or these little Wookies so that, they get real scared of the dark. And then he tells them this horrible story where, they're at the end. And it's such it gives me such remembrances of like campfires and like scary stories and things like that. So I do love how it fits into this like arc here.
Yeah, definitely somebody at that campfire was like, too many smiles, too much excitement. Let's bring this down a little bit.
Exactly.
But this panel specifically, looking at it, if you're watching the YouTube version, you can see. So this is what really makes a lot of like the carnage tie. Definitely makes a lot of sense here. So,
yeah, for sure. R.I.P. Wicket. You're a real one.
Exactly.
I call pretty much every Ewok I see Wicket. So like,
no, he has like the red cowl.
Yeah.
The only reason I know any Ewok names is the Galaxy of Heroes mobile game. Because they were actually like a decent faction.
Okay.
Played.
Is is this still going? Because I've seen it a few times and I've thought about getting into it.
Don't do it. It's a time sink. If you want to be good, you have to be like insanely dedicated, like follow like a build guide, and be like always on, or you spend a lot of money. It is literally
Clash of Clans
is a mobile game that even it came out like 2015, 2014-ish. By like 2018, it had grossed $1 billion.
I have a friend, and I'm not going to name names here because, this might get back to his wife, because he said he was playing it accidentally, and the entire time you're playing it, there's a giant hyperspace button there. And he said one time, he was like, what happens if you press it? Like,
I know exactly what that is.
I want to see what I get if I press the hyperspace button here. And he pressed it thinking it should pull up a menu of like, hey, these are all the heroes you get. Nope, it charged him $99.
Yeah.
And it just like instantly charged him $99, but it unlocked everything.
Yeah. Yeah, they added that around the time I left the game in like 2018, 2019. Yeah, it was like because the whole game you have to like level up your account to 85, and I think it was 85, and once you hit 85, the real game starts. But this would give you a bunch of characters like decently well leveled up and just skip you straight to level 85 for $100. Because otherwise it would take you maybe like a month or two to like to a fully like a plane like dedicated to like get to that level to where you can actually start playing.
It's so funny. So that's like why I never got into WoW, because I had a lot of friends and I feel like I would love it eventually, but I never wanted to pay. It's like $40, I think, to boost up your account.
Or you just played a game. The game was fun.
So I have played a little bit. I think I got a character up to like level 35 or 36 or whatever. And the story's pretty decent. It's also just like I lose interest with grinds really quick. And so if I feel like I'm doing a lot of like deliver quests and stuff like that, then I don't know. I start getting really bored really quick. So
I was bad into WoW in my like early college, like after Lich King era. But in like many things, I realized like if I don't step off this train like at this exact point where I can, this train will keep going for like the next 20 years.
Yeah,
like it's not gonna stop. Like there'll never be an end of World of Warcraft. I have to step off while I still can.
So is that Star Wars comics or
listen, it's not that I've suddenly like unlocked the secret 12th hour of the day or anything like that. I've filled that time with many other things, but not another MMO. I've not gone back full time to an MMO.
Well,
I've never been the MMO guy for
sure.
I've gone in bursts. Like I think I played like a month of EVE Online at one point, and that was like super chill. It's spreadsheets in space, man. Like I was just sitting around mining, and like it was just fun. And I had like these grand dreams of like running some sort of like trade thing, being like a merchant in the whole world. But if you're not into Eve and you're not spending money on Eve, it's never going to happen. So, all right, there is another story in this Ewok.
It's the best one.
It is the best one.
Really? Okay.
Because it's okay. So it is. This one's written by Alyssa Wong. It stars motherfucking Peekpa. Peekpa, we stand Peekpa. Peekpa, if you don't know, she is from Last Shot. She is a slicer Ewok. That is like even in the canon, there's in the book Last Shot, there's a Gungan who also literally stands Peekpa. So Peekpa has definitely like a ride or die crew on Twitter, and I'm a part of it. Very excited to see her come back in this story, and she's not done either. She will make some sort of appearance in the Return of the Jedi from a certain point of view, because Alyssa. So this story right here, the Scout Trooper you see flipping over, Alyssa Wong's story is about that Scout Trooper.
Oh, really?
Oh, that's sick.
Okay, I'm super much more interested in this one. Like, I am glad we got Peekpa's origin story, for lack of a better term here.
Yeah, because she manages to basically build herself a spaceship out of an AT-ST head and then fly off of Endor to go join the New Republic. This
panel right here is the one that I was talking about is my favorite. It's like the most. It reminds me of the part from, it's either Frozen or Frozen 2, I don't remember, but when Olaf like stares at the sky and then snaps on his goggles and then goes diving off of the hill. That's the vibe that this gave me. It was just really cute. I love the art in this. That's very cute. In this particular art.
I found out like literally like a couple hours ago that apparently there was a Peekpa pin that was made at one point.
Really?
With the convention version of Last Shot, which is a very gorgeous cover. Apparently there's a little Peekpa like enamel pin that you got with it. I knew about the cover. I never knew there was a pin of Peekpa. So now I guess I have a new goal.
That'll be on eBay for $200 somewhere.
Yeah. But anyways.
What'd you think about this one, Caleb?
Okay, and now I feel bad saying it, but I feel like this was like my least favorite of the three.
That's fair.
I felt like it was fun, it was cute, but it felt like kind of a weird way to end like the trilogy, for lack of a better term. We had like the happy story, we had this like kind of
scary
story, and then we had the story about, and then the smartest of us left this podunk town and went away. It's like that like it was an interesting story, but I felt like it kind of left a trilogy that they were trying to work up for. Not really trilogy, but it was kind of a strange way to just like end this book series, or this single issue of the comic.
Yeah. It was interesting that they told three so very different stories, and they did do a good job of like illustrating different parts of Ewok life. Like, I don't know, these were very popular characters when they first came out. They've in ways really risen in popularity with time, and to see kind of behind the curtain a little bit and see like little family matters and like the horrors of going and hunting and feeding your family, but on top of that being the ingenuity side. Like, I don't know, it humanizes the characters a little bit. I think it's pretty good.
All right. Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, after this one, we do have, another fun one here of another fan favorite character. Next one is Lando. And this one stars Lando and Chewie as they're on the hunt for the blueprints of Jabba's palace, trying to set up the big heist to get Han back. When the vendor is charging exorbitant prices, Lando must hit up an old friend's gambling hall to make good. But it ends with a Imperial raid and a shootout. But Lando always gets his way, and he does wind up acquiring the plans through a friend. So it ends with them rocketing off again to save Han Solo. So this one was a kind of another like good one here. It felt like they could have like dropped this almost into like Star Wars mainline series, and no one would have batted an eye really.
I have questions now because I was just thinking about this. Lando is literally in the Star Wars mainline, headed to Jabba's palace right now. So does he need the plans? He's about to see the inside of it himself. I mean, maybe, I guess if he's going to work there, he might need to know like some back areas for the movie.
back areas are where the power conduits go. Well, the other thing is like, it's not like this guy, whoever they found, like built it. Like this was like a monastery of the Bar monks.
Oh yeah, Bomar, I think.
Bomar monks, yeah, the guys with the
brains
jars.
In the jar, yeah,
exactly. So they probably maybe found a subcontractor who ran the power and got it up to code afterwards.
Yeah, I really
know. They didn't get it much into his plans. Like they're relatively vague about his plans in this issue. Like I need the plans.
It feels like this would be like a montage in a part of a montage in a heist movie. It's like them getting to plans, like paying the guy for the blueprints.
Yeah, which I guess is perfect for a one shot.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What I really did, I think, enjoy from this is the coloring work on it. I guess the coloring's by Antonio Fabella. It kind of like it reminds me of like I don't know, like 70s or 80s like newspaper strip comics.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it has a golden age kind of feel.
Golden age, or kind of like that old like Marvel version of it. In the kind of later Marvel into like the 80s, that kind of real bright sort of coloring here. It was good. Like this is a weird pull here, but I don't know, like the casino with that had the Imperial raid on it. I got mad vibes of, remember that one from Star Wars Vision Season 2, the French one with like the nightclub? I don't know, for some reason I was like really reminded of that, like when the Imperial came and like like the nightclub standing up to these like Imperial raiders here.
I maybe still need to finish Vision Season 2.
Halfway through, and like my wife and I watching, like, wow, these are all really good, but also sometimes emotionally devastating. So,
I haven't started them, so
they're really, really good, but like they're not an easy light watch, for lack of a better term. It's like they can be kind of heavy there. So it's not like some like, hey, honey, do you want to eat dinner and get and have our guts punched out by sisters mourning their dead mother? No. Maybe we'll just watch Rebels again.
Okay, so as far as this story goes, your point to the casino scene, I'm a big fan. Anytime Lando's playing Sabacc, I'm in. I'm bought.
That does help.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So the whole gambling scene, I was just flipping through some of the panels here, but I loved it. It was really fun. The ultimate cliffhanger for me is always the like, was he cheating or wasn't he cheating thing that Lando gets so often. I feel like he gets that treatment like all the time.
And the answer is always yes.
Yeah, the answer is yes, but I need the confirmation. I need the closure to know, like, okay, did he have the exact same Sabacc deck, just happen to have it tucked away up his sleeve? Like, how does he always figure out a way to win? He can literally go up to somebody and ask them to play Sabacc. They can say, you'll cheat me again, and he'll be like, yeah, but still, let's play Sabacc, and then they'll agree and he'll win every time. Like it's such a predictable.
Oh yeah, a fun detail is like the table they're actually playing on is a Sabacc card. It's like that like hexagonal like card.
Where is it?
It's great. Yeah, it's great when you see Chewie pick it up and throw out a bunch of stormtroopers. It's pretty obvious there. All right, now here's a wild question. I know there are technically official rules, but do you guys feel like the three of us, like, would you guys be good Sabacc players? Would you actually like understand how to play Sabacc?
So like for those who don't know, it is a real game that you can buy and play. And I own a deck, and that doesn't translate to knowing how to play because I've never even opened the deck. I think I just have it to have it. I would love to play someday, but I wonder, could you you guys ever tried to convince non-Star Wars people or non-fans of a thing to do a very fan-ish thing? It's impossible.
It doesn't go well usually. No.
I can't have people who aren't like massive Star Wars fans like over for board game night. Be like, hey, do you guys want to play that card game that kind of gets mentioned in a spin-off movie?
You just can't you just don't tell them what it's from. Just like, hey, I got this cool new card game. It's called Sabacc. I want to try it out, and you might be able to. You could make something happen.
I feel like I could pass it off because I don't think the rules even mention anything to do with Star Wars. So
they do use credits, but that's a pretty generic,
You could use chips.
Chips, anything like that.
The closest I get is playing Pazak in KOTOR, and that doesn't always go well for me. So I'm gonna assume I'd be a pretty bad Sabacc player as well.
Yeah, like Pazak, I feel like was one of those, like, it's interesting. It's like, wow, like after you like do the tutorial of it, it's like, hey, do you want to play this in every bar you go to? Nah, I don't need money anymore. I could sell 16 lightsabers and get like 1,000 credits each. I don't need to place the box for money.
Yeah, it's only important on Terrace where, like, if you want to get things before it gets, leveled, you gotta get some money.
Exactly.
I always love those like spin-off games though, like Gwent.
Yeah, Gwent.
Big Gwent guy.
But I don't game that got its own game.
Yeah, spin-off game that got its own game. But so it's funny though because Gwent had its moment and then it just went away completely. Yeah. It's pretty much gone now. It was on Steam and like there's like 7 people still. If you are one of the 7 people still playing Gwent on Steam, keep it up.
Nice. I really love the like hollow chess mini game in Jedi Survivor.
Okay.
I had a lot of fun with that until I beat all the levels. I'm like, well, this is it. I wish there was like a Gwent style spin-off game because I did have a lot of fun with that, even though like there was like 1 or 2 like loadouts. I was like so overpowered. It didn't really matter what you got put against you. So it kind of took away the strategy once I got that figured out. But, still had a lot of fun with it.
Playing any of those games against real people gets fun, and then it's like it's like a novelty thing. It's like, oh, this was fun, but
yeah, all right. Anyways,
designing games is hard, and if you're doing it for a video game, you're probably not designing the best game in the world. I feel like it's fair.
Yeah,
it's like this will be a fun distraction from the main game there.
Yeah, and especially to grab like someone like me, I'm a big like do only the amount of side quests I need to progress through the main story.
Oh, that's not me.
Ooh, that's me.
Okay.
That's me, and things like Gwent don't normally grab my attention, so the fact that it did was pretty impressive.
Like I'm the sort of person with Jacob there. Like don't have to do like 100% of all the side content, but if it's like a nice like side quest that looks there, I'll always do that. I have a problem when it's like, oh, continue the main quest or do 10 hours of side quests. Like, oh boy, side quest time. Here we go.
Yeah. I don't know. It depends on the game for me because like Borderlands, I remember Borderlands and Borderlands 2, I did everything you could do in that game a couple times over with every character. So that was a lot of fun. And then like Spider-Man, I always talk about I 100% of the Spider-Man game, which might be the only game I've actually 100%ed. I even did the ones where I had to run up Avengers Tower for 3 hours so I could get all of the run 17 miles or whatever it was bar filled up all the way.
Oh man. Well, do you want to move on to Empire?
Oh yeah, speaking of comics, Empire. So this one's a fun one. This one stars a brand new character, Rilo Grinth. He's a mid-level tech conscripted by the Empire to work on a remote outpost on the forest moon of Endor. He has some difficulty fitting in, but eventually, after several setbacks, he just knuckles down and decides to just focus on his job and do it as best as he can. Unfortunately, his loyalty to Empire does not save him from being spirited away to an Imperial work camp after he accesses some restricted files in the name of doing good. This one was a lot of fun. I really liked the kind of focused narrative of it. Like, it had a really good ending here. I like how it kind of played on the theme of the harder you try in the Empire, oftentimes the worst you get, that the nail that sticks up gets hammered down sort of dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I was like, there are a few cool things I really enjoyed, because his family was owned a private company that got acquired by the Empire, and then they brought him in as a technician, which is it kind of reminds me of the OG Thrawn novel, where they're scooping up mining facilities and stuff everywhere, and being your private company is now part of the Empire. But then the coolest part of this is, I think, the end where he goes to it's straight up an Andor style work prison. It's the same setup, same uniform, same barracks. It was I remember reading this, and you just see you see the orange uniform. You're like, whoa, okay. Mm-hmm. I think that definitely gave a good, although it kind of tries to end it on an uplifting note, but you're he's never leaving that prison.
No. Luckily,
I guess, if the Empire is getting overthrown probably in the next couple weeks, timeline wise, maybe he could survive. to get liberated, but
then he joins the New Republic, and we all know how well that goes.
Hey, he can, if he can keep his head down, maybe that's a lesson he learned in this comic book. Like Caleb said, he can probably be okay.
Now, one thing I'm interested in is because after, like, at the very end, like, he has like a Deveronian roommate and he drops his name. It's like, that's interesting. Like, they gave a name to someone that's in like literally 4 panels here. Like, do you think this isn't the last we see of him, or do you think like Jody Houser here has some like interest in like coming back and doing like some more stories with this character here? Because I feel like you could do some interesting things, like a breakout after, as we said, after the end of the Empire. There's some groundwork here for this character. I feel like part of me, maybe it's just wishful thinking. I don't think we've seen the last of was this Rilo Grinth.
Yeah.
I feel like based on the theme that each one of these are kind of like based on a throwaway line or a very small aspect of Star Wars itself, it's almost like this could have been written in retrospect, or I don't know what the forward version of that, like written before the thing that references it. So like maybe we get a story that involves his dad, or maybe we get a story where somebody does break those prisoners out of that prison or something. And then you're like, oh, I remember that guy.
If it ever gets referenced again, any of these characters, it's going to be in something else that Jody Houser writes. So
absolutely.
The next time she's writing comics, keep an eye out for Kreb, keep an eye out for Rilo, and maybe you'll see something. But
or even the corporation. Was it the Grinth Corporation or Grinth?
Yeah, Grinth Technologies.
Yeah, that one. Yep. Yeah, 100%.
You never know.
See that. The art here was like pretty good. I liked it. It wasn't like, didn't completely sweep me off my feet, but I think that it was really good and really solid within like especially the context of this issue. But it was kind of hard for it to follow all the art we got in the Ewok issue. I'm not gonna lie, I was like, not that it was a step down. It wasn't, of course. I would never say that it's a step down or
different.
Anything. It was just different, and I was on such a high from the Ewok issue that I was like, oh, okay, we're back to normal here.
Exactly. So here's a quick question: Do you think he's like a great coworker, or do you think this would be a terrible coworker at your actual job here?
It's one of those coworkers that you're like, oh my god, just stop trying, man. Please, just like keep making everything worse.
Just do your job and shut up, sort of thing.
I think he'll be fine. Yeah, he'd be fine if he was in someone else's department.
Yeah, like he's that nice guy that you're like,
he's chill, but you don't want to actually like be on shift with him if you don't have to.
Like you're fine, like nodding at each other at the water cooler, but it's like, hey, do you want to go to lunch together? Oh, I have to make a call.
Yeah.
Working through
I got
lunch.
So many emails to catch up on.
Emails, yeah. So poor guy.
All right. So our penultimate, I believe, is if we have the Empire, we must also have the Rebellion, which is of course the Admiral Akbar pointing meme cover that has graced us with. I if nothing else, I do appreciate that.
Oh yes, the it's a trap meme cover. It's here. It's a thing. We finally have official thing. So if the Empire was kind of like a really erudite quick one, the Rebellion one is like, here we go. All right, let me try to summarize this. Oh yes, here we go. The pointing finger. Here we go. Rebellion. An assassination attempt is out against Mon Mothma. With precious little information, Admiral Akbar sends his 2 most trusted agents and comics power couple, Shara Bay and Kes Dameron, after them. Tracking down the money, the couple finally tracks down Mothma's secret meeting, interrupt the assassin, but are actually defeated by the assassin and in turn saved by Mon Mothma herself. So this one, this is one of the ones we were talking about where most definitely it fits a lot of story into these like 36 pages here. There's a lot going on with this comic here. Almost in like stark contrast to the Empire. Well, of course, the Rebellion and the Empire are 2 different things, but like while the Empire one shot was a very like focused on like one character and one very specific thing, there's like what 8 different named characters, 9 different named characters throughout this one, each one with
at
like
least
a paragraph of text or so.
Yeah,
a lot happens in here. It's also, so this is written by Alex Segura, and like I didn't even like look at the creative team. I was just reading it, and I get like pretty far through. I'm like, there's these things because like I know Shara Bay, I know Kess, and I know Mon Mothma, but like I'm like, I don't. There's these characters I feel like I should recognize, and I don't. Like it's treating me like I have some prior knowledge, and then I get to the Spice Runners of Kijimi part. I'm like, oh, it's written by Alex Segura, who wrote Poe Dameron Freefall, which is the Poe Dameron prequel novel, or origin story novel. It's a YA book, and with his time with the Spice Runners of Kijimi, and it's like, oh. I'm sure I would recognize these two characters on the screen. I'm sure I would recognize the like agent at the end. There's a lot of things where I'm like, I would probably know that, but I didn't because I haven't read this book. It's on my TBR out in the hallway, but it's in the background there. I think the bounty hunter might be new. I don't know that it's from that book, but one of the coolest designs I would say we've seen in a while. I don't know what the alien name is. It's
Aeronautic, I think it's like has two A's in it.
It's one of those like Mos Eisley Cantina style-y aliens, and half of its face is an IG droid, and it has a giant sniper rifle. It looks pretty sick.
Yeah, no, this is one of my favorite. I at first
Arcona.
I was like,
it's a Arcona.
Okay, cool. I didn't know what I was looking at first. I was like, that's an IG. That's not an IG droid. Why is that IG droid's head sideways? It's not sideways. Oh, it's one of those things. Oh, it's one of those things with an IG. Like I went through that whole progression while I was reading this issue, and it was really good. I thought it was interesting that like it was one of the. It was a very good cocky bounty hunter kind of character, where we got the like, oh, this is my favorite sniper rifle, and I only bring it out when I'm going to use it for something super important. But I thought that it was really cool that besides the fact that they were able to threaten Mon Mothma's life, that they did tie it pretty well into the rest of the overarching story of Return of the Jedi. They were able to like incorporate the entire like rebellion resources and how they were allocating them leading up to the problems that they were going to face at Endor, like finding the Death Star plans and hitting the Empire where it hurts and stuff like that. So to see the kind of like the character of Mon Mothma be able to have that moment of like, oh, don't allocate any resources to me. I'm not as important as the mission of the rebellion. That was really cool. I love her character. And she was drawn really well in this issue. And I don't know. I had a lot that I liked about this, besides the fact that there were huge blocks of text and a bunch of characters I didn't know, and that it felt like it should have been 3 issues.
Yeah, it needed more breathing room, which is like it feels weird to say as a criticism because like, you know, if this was a 4-issue miniseries, I would probably enjoy it quite a bit.
Yeah.
But
and also if I had read
a lot
Freefall.
Oh, Dameron Freefall. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe in like a month. I'm kidding. There's no way it's pretty high up on my TBR, but we also have 2 books coming out in like the next week and a half. So the odds of me getting to that anytime soon, not very good.
Which it's funny you bring that up because for those of you who don't know and haven't read the Youtini recommended reading order on youtini.com, our recommendation is that you always read books within a month of them coming out and then try to catch up in the meantime because there's not a new book coming out every week. So
that's what I'm doing right now.
There you go. Ooh. That's what we all try to do because we realize how hard it is to keep up with all these freaking books as they come out, especially when something like from a certain point of view, Return of the Jedi comes out and it's a big boy and you're like, all right, we gotta work to get through this thing. So
I think we're on
the
like
comic
over 500
cycle,
pages or something.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, and we're also on a comic cycle, so something new is coming out every single week. So,
yeah,
I do have some.
We have a podcast about it.
Pop out here. One thing I just found it fun that you brought up. The bounty hunter talking about their weapon and they refit A280, my darling. That's just a normal Rebellion blaster. Like that's what you used in Battlefront 2 the entire time. When I saw that design, I was like, really? That's just a normal blaster rifle, bro. We've had artists that definitely drew Tusken Raiders with AK-47s.
But you know, he may have a cool sniper rifle and a cool design, but it will never be as cool as the member of the Orphans that had a coaxium bullet to shoot us like a ship out of the sky.
Oh yeah, that was
insane. You can't top that.
No, you can't. Now another thing is, I don't know if you have the images of it, but there's a scene where Shara Bay and Cass are like raiding like an money man's, and I swear Char's wearing something Padme wore. She's like in an all white jumpsuit.
It's pretty close.
Like purple outline. So I'm not sure if that was something that was like a conscious decision, or it's just like, you know what? I'm sure Padme, and this makes total sense, was a total fashion icon during her time.
Oh yeah, she was inspiring.
Yeah,
galactic fashion. Like 20 years after she died.
Like that makes the most sense out of anything I've ever heard in Star Wars. That's the best Star Wars theory ever.
Depending on the fashion cycles in a galaxy far, far away.
It's vintage.
Yeah, it's definitely it's coming back into its own. Like right now, everybody's wearing like 80s band tees, and it's like the pits of fashion right now. So
yeah, I mean, there's literally a comic story about the dresses of Queen Amidala. So
Wait, really?
Yeah, it's actually in Poe Dameron. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
It's really it's fun. It's fun.
It's like a side plot. Well, not a side plot. It's like a plot device. It's not like the main focus, but yes,
that's cool. I'm a big fan of that. Yeah, no, the absolute like I need to get into. That's the lore I want. That's the comics miniseries I want. Is just like some sort of celebrity in the Star Wars universe trying to figure out what's in style, and then just like. I don't know. Oh, there's this senator from Naboo, and look at this. Look what she wore. She even got captured and fought like beasts in a Geonosian arena with it.
Now there's.
I feel like that is part of the book. I feel like there is something like that specifically talks about. Oh, it's like in one of the Queen's books, they kind of like talk about like how Padme's styles are like being adopted in certain ways around Naboo.
Really,
but makes total sense. Yeah. Now, I do have one other thing I want to point out, and because she's kind of a major player here, Mon Mothma, I do want to ask you guys some questions, because I just went through all of Rebellion with our Rebels with my wife here, and she's not seen everything. She hasn't seen Andor, and that's kind of like the big thing here. And she's like, at the end, she's like, man, that Mon Mothma withholding, like, but she's like withholding all those support from all the rebels here, and like being like mean. So I feel like my wife is like anti Mon Mothma here, and it's like it's hard to like argue that she's not getting a bad-ish like reputation from rebels, but it's also like I feel like Mon Mothma's reputation is like, is she always like a perfect paragon of like goodness here, or do you think there's some like area for grayness in her characterization?
I think she's somewhat like I didn't have a strong opinion on her until Andor, and now I really enjoy her character a lot more. Obviously, it's like the biggest spotlight she's ever gotten in like her 40 years now of life. I think she is someone who has tried to stay above board while also holding the strings together of something that's like rapidly, being tried to being pulled apart. So she is doing the absolute best she can while also, trying to be good morally, which is a very difficult situation to be in when you are facing a literal galactic empire. But I think she has a lot more arguable flaws after the war is over, and how she handles the galactic government from that point. But for now, I think she's a pretty solid character.
I think to put it in like super unfair to her terms, I would think she's kind of like I won't say end justifies the means. It's just like for better or worse for the good of the rebellion kind of thing. And so like whether that means trying to forego resources to keep herself safe for the better of the empire or what have you, or better for the rebellion, not the empire.
Rebellion.
But for whatever the case, whatever the cost, the death of Bothan spies, things like that. She's always been that like do what we have to do. Yeah, we're saving more lives than we're losing, kind of thing. It seems
interesting. There's also a scene from I think it was Youtini favorite Lost Stars, where like our main character comes across Mon Mothma, and like he like makes a point at she's kind of like the counter to Palpatine. She's like the good version of Palpatine, and I can see that read, but I'm not sure if I agree 100% with it. I don't know. I feel like she needs me a few more characterizations.
I think it's a very just like if you're talking from the lens of a character in the world, I think it's a very surface level and like observation someone might make. They're like, oh, it's there's the bad guy leader that I've never like personally interacted with, and the good guy leader that I'm barely interacting with. Like for him to be like, it's that person. I mean, it makes sense in that character's mind.
Yeah, 100%. I could see that. She's definitely that may be more of what her character is just a surface level like anti-Palpatine.
Interesting.
That's a pretty good way of putting it. But.
Yeah. Well, that's a fun deep dive into a side character. Speaking of deep dives into like side characters, someone who gets almost as much screen time in the original trilogy as Mon Mothma, it's time for the Max Rebo one shot. Like of all the characters of like side characters, I don't think Max Rebo was on the top of anyone's list, but here it is. Like just before we get into this. Do you think Daniel Jose Older wrote this one because he's like, man, I can't wait to talk about Max Rebo? Or was he like looking at Twitter and seeing that, all the memes about Max Rebo when he came back in Book of Boba Fett's like, this could be a lot of fun, mining this meme canyon here.
I think he said there's not enough plot to assassinate Jabba stories.
That's true.
I think that's what it was. He was like, we need to get Jabba. No, not enough people are trying to kill Jabba. So. The Max Rebo band's got to get in on this action.
He also really wanted to make sure we understood exactly that Ortolans have 2 legs and no arms, and not 4 appendages. It's a very important debate we have to clear up here.
Is that that's a real thing?
Yes, because the puppet in the movie, like he's playing with his feet.
Yeah,
like the feet come up, and there's like a lot of confusion on if he's playing with his feet and his arms are down by his side or whatever. So there have been like different ways they've been drawn over the years. But yes, the actual, especially because like if you look at it, it looks like it's just shoulders. Like he has like kind of like very like wrinkly shoulders, but no, those are his legs that are hinged and coming all the way up.
Okay.
So yeah, like what you think are his shoulders are actually his knees that are like just up alongside him.
So then how does he shrug? I need a full anatomy deep dive.
I guess you would have to like kind of lift up from your waist almost, like your hips,
doing, like,
your hips,
like reverse squats over here, just shrugging. Yeah. Like I have no idea, guys.
Yeah, he does nothing every day for Max Rebo's leg day. So
I guess that's the case if you don't have anything else to work out. What are you doing today? Legs, man. I don't know.
Like he work out his trunk, maybe. I guess.
Yeah, no, he gets some ear splits in, but
Do you think that he's in on when Khan is doing Leku Day?
Oh
he's going there. He's like, I'm gonna do trunk. You do Leku.
We'll spot each other.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Sounds
so. So the story of this one is, Max leads himself and his band through the deadly last days of Jabba's court as tensions rise between his 2 drummers and the ghost of his own past. But in the end, the band survives the destruction of Jabba's barge as Max Rebo flees and leaves behind the deadly cloud of death that has been hanging over him the entire time at court. This one is kind of fun. I kind of like how it has like almost like the A story of like Max Rebo and his like literal ghost of his own past, like chasing him, of another like foot for hands race of the Doug. Race. Yeah, the Doug there, and then also like the difference between like was it the Weequay and the
Nikto?
Nikto, yes.
Or wait, no, it's not Nikto. It's a Klatooinian.
Klatooinian, yes, as his 2 drummers like are at odds between like, is it okay to protect Jabba for everything he's done, or should we like follow our like rules and actually try to kill Jabba, the evil crime lord of all, as they come to literal blows about it. Man, like this story was actually like, it was a good story, but it's like, man, Max is like a real bummer of a dude, like for the entire time of it. It's like, it's not like I was disappointed. It's like, wow, this character is like super tragic and sad and like crying all the time. This is
kind of like an Eeyore kind of type character. I mean, they're both basically elephants, anyways.
I was just gonna say it was a very Eeyore vibe, and then at the end he comes around and he like, gets a little sassy. Like it was nice. But yeah, no, this is a fun little story. It didn't focus on Max Rebo a lot. It feels like they used the Max Rebo name to kind of sell some copies, but. No, it was good. It was fun. Like I said, another plot to kill Jabba. That's always nice.
Hey, we actually did see him die.
We did see him die.
And I do want to talk about that a little bit. I don't know if you have that panel or not. I saw a few. I can't remember who's mentioned this. I saw some other people talking online how they really enjoyed this panel because obviously, like, there's been a lot of discourse and discussion over the depiction of Leia on Tatooine in this movie. And in the recent, I think this was like maybe it started around the Bloodline time. They started referring to her as Hutt Slayer Leia, which is a little bit more of a empowering name than what she's traditionally been called over the past 40 years.
Boba Fett Starship Leia.
Yes,
I was about to
exactly.
make that same joke, Parker. How could you do
Classic.
this?
So,
How
but like
could
the cool
you
thing
do
about
this to me?
this panel is like you are showing the like power of what she's able to do and take down Jabba, but by doing it by giving it a silhouette, you're kind of taking away the like objectification angle of it, which I think is like kind of a very tasteful and cool way to handle this. That like we know what happens, but you're emphasizing and focusing on like the important parts of her character, which is her taking down Jabba.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really good point. I hadn't even thought about that way, but now that
I didn't either.
a lot of sense.
Someone on Twitter had mentioned it, and I feel bad that I don't remember who had said this originally. But yeah, it's a pretty cool panel.
It's almost like a counter because like if you look at I was doing a lot of just some googling for like Return of the Jedi comics, and if you look at all the old like trade paperbacks and like the actual comics retelling versions, like you see Hutt Killer Leia in like front and center on every single like issue cover for like all those trade paperbacks, like like look, we got this here, we're gonna sell a lot of copies if we do this. So it's nice that we can like take a step back, do something a little bit more reserved and put her in silhouette here. I feel like that was an interesting and probably a smart idea. I feel like we've kind of this sounds bad, but like we've milked that cow. Like that is a well that is we don't have to keep going back to anymore.
Yeah, and it wasn't like it was. I think that this issue, and I don't know if I grabbed any of the panels, but this issue towed a line of like there is a time and place. Like when there are certain female characters in this issue specifically that do have like they're like scantily clad or wearing anything like that, and it's part of the character. Like there's Boba Fett is like being distracted by one of them at one point, and it's like a part of what is going on in the scene. And when it's important to the narrative, then it's shown. But when it like you said, Hutt Slayer Leia didn't need to be the way that she was, and we've had that conversation for years and everything like that. But to show the important part of the scene without the part that we didn't need was pretty nice. I like that a lot.
But can we mention another very powerful woman that made an appearance at the end of this comic book?
Yes, I have that. Oh, I had that panel. Oh, there we go.
Madam Garsa Whip.
Yes.
I did not expect this to be here again. It's like the end of Empire where I'm like, whoa, Andor prison. It's like, whoa, Garsa Whip. The star of the show of Book of Boba Fett. It's not Book of Boba Fett. It's Book of Garsa Whip. Real. We all know that her and Max did find a way to survive and make it out of that cantina or whatever at the end of the
explosion. Yeah, exactly. Listen, Boba Fett survived being eaten by a Sarlacc, so there's absolutely no way they didn't make it out of that place. But Max Rebo's we've shown in this thing how he managed to escape from one giant exploding barge. There's absolutely no way he couldn't do it again. So to kind of focus a bit on Max here, like, do you think you'll ever be able to watch episode 6 again and not get a little teary-eyed about like Max and his like poor like death like fugue he's been in the last 4 months working for Jabba or however long?
Well, he comes out the other side.
That does help.
I think the vibes of Jedi Rocks are going to overwhelm any other thoughts I have about him as a character, to be honest. So but another character I'm also interested to see what they do with from a certain point of view. I think this one might be Phil Shostak is doing this.
Oh yeah. Can't wait for it to have completely disagree from everything that we've seen today and have like that discourse again about what's actually canon.
See, that's just the vibe from a certain point of view. It's it can be canon as much as you want it to be honest.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like that interview that gets tossed around a lot of I almost just said Mark Ruffalo, Wow, Dave Filoni, when he's in the interview where he's like, yeah, well, talking to George, he always thought that anything that wasn't on screen was sort of like legends and like that. Is that got that kind of vibe? Obviously, I don't really subscribe to that whole line of thinking, but there is something to be said for things like from a certain point of view and stuff like didn't necessarily.
Well, it's like even like Dave said, like with Tales of the Jedi, he's like that was just kind of like my thought of what might have happened.
Yeah.
That also spawned a whole another conversation that I don't want to talk about right now because it's not going to be fun. But hey,
especially not on the Youtini podcast network. Probably it's going to
also on the comic book show where we get to talk about comic books
Lord.
and also occasionally Brandon Sanderson and or manga.
Because comics have never been trampled over, or had not trampled over. That sounds too vindictive, but comics have never been had important parts from comics disregarded in television shows before.
No, but we got Black Chrysanthemum.
That is true. We get Black Chrysanthemum first. Now, okay, this is going to be. I just want to bring this up here because this is something to cycle back. You mentioned Bloodlines, Jacob, and there's like a plot point where
Bloodline. Key difference. Two different books.
Sorry. Yeah. Oh, okay. Because in is that
Legends is Bloodlines. Legends is Bloodlines plural, the Legacy of the Force book.
Oh.
Bloodline singular is the Leia book from canon.
Yeah, well, the Leia book in canon, like again, we're referring to where she's talking about the Hutt Slayer, and in that, like it was what I forget. That was that like the group of like Nikto or Weequay that was like talking to her about it.
Yeah, it's Rin Riven D or whatever. It's a Nikto.
Which is interesting because in this novel, it's the Nikto, like the clan, that's like, hey, we got to do everything we can to protect these Hutts. Like, yes, they enslave us. Yes, they persecute us. Yes, we're like bound to them. But, we got to protect them because that's our job, our duty. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting that was the group that was like, hey, we got to protect Jabba no matter what.
For sure. They had a nice 25 years or so to reflect on their decisions afterwards. So,
that or is a different group, just because you're all one.
There are two separate subspecies of Nikto. So
there's actually I think there's 3 depending on which rule book you're looking at.
I don't have time to do a deep enough Wook dive on that one right now, but I'll take your word for it.
It depends on Trevor.
It depends on the rule book you're reading. I think it's
I think Trevor's probably asleep, but
well, maybe next time.
All right,
guys, I really like these issues.
That's what I say. That was all 6 of them. So okay, you really liked them. Do you have one that you liked more than the others?
So the story from the Empire, the art from Ewoks.
Yeah, I think story from the Empire. I think I liked art from Jabba's Palace maybe a little bit more, just because I love maybe also Max Reboot. I just love the big crowd scenes of seeing all my favorite characters.
The Lando casino scenes were really good too.
That's true. Yeah, I've already said I am an Ewoks fan, and if you're interested in reading all these, the nice thing is they've been released as one shots. They are also being collected as a trade paperback, all bound together pretty soon. I think probably next month or 2.
And the best part,
it should be out. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say it should be out soon. It's going to be collected, and they're using the Jabba's Palace cover for the cover of the trade. It looks pretty good. Looks pretty
perfect. And one thing I was going to say is the good news is, unlike a lot of these ones here, like the trade paperbacks and different things, you don't got to worry about the reading order.
No,
you really don't. Just read it in the way it goes. Like, I can't think of a better reading order or anything like that. It flows well as it is.
Maybe read Max Rebo and Jabba's Palace close to each other, because those stories.
Everyone's trying to kill.
Everybody's trying to kill Jabba. Everybody's trying to kill Jabba. Still don't think there's enough of those. Still don't think that. But yeah, no, I appreciate you guys. I like the reading material for this week. We will let you guys know on Twitter moving forward what you should probably take a look at if you want to join in on the conversation for next episode. But before we get out of here, there's a couple news pieces, some Momoko news. I don't know, Jacob, do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, so the smaller one, Peach Momoko, the world famous variant cover artist, is doing a Ahsoka variant for Mandalorian season 2, either issue 4 or 5, wherever she first shows up on the TV show, with Unknown Comics. I ordered one. By the time you listen to this, I don't think you can buy them anymore, so I'm sorry, but it looks gorgeous, and I'll show it to you in a couple weeks or months, probably whenever it comes out. But the more exciting one is they announced about a week ago, I think, that they're doing a new Visions story. So you have, when Vision Season 1 came out, they had Ronin, which was an adaptation of the episode The Duel. And then they also did a separate comic book that was also an adaptation of the TV show of that episode of The Duel. Except Ronin is like a full story, and that I think was just The Duel, if I remember correctly.
It wasn't. If I remember reading it, I don't think it was actually the story. I feel like it was like another story, like using the same character in the same world, but he's like fighting essentially Afro samurai. Like
I think it didn't.
Spring.
Didn't it come like right before the like episode took place? Maybe I can't remember. Anyways, it was very cool, but it was just like a random one shot. And now they are doing a new thing. It's Peach Momoko is doing a original story. She also, of course, did the Vader Black, White, and Red story, but there's a original full-length comic book issue that is like Visions, kind of just gives a like chance to tell a Star Wars based story to animation studios. They're now giving the chance to tell a one-shot story to artists. So Peach does writing and art as well. So she's going to do her own issue, and they said there's going to be more to come. So I don't know if you all had any, if you could like pick one person to do an issue, what it would be. I can start off because I already know mine.
Okay.
Mine would be she's done Star Wars before. Elsa Charité. I can't do French, man. Charité, whatever. She did a lot of the Forces of Destiny and a bunch of the IDW comics back in the day, and is a writer artist as well. It's like very like Darwin Cook kind of style art, if you're familiar with his stuff, like Golden Age, like very like pointed chins, you know what I'm talking about? But yeah, yeah, I don't know. I love her art quite a bit. And I would really enjoy seeing her get to do more Star Wars because it's been a while. So
I like that. I off the dome piece, because I didn't really think about this beforehand, but I don't really have a particular artist I'd like to see so much as, I don't know, much like Jabba Assassination Attempts, there's not enough Darth Vader comics, so maybe Frank Miller's take on Vader would be pretty cool.
Ooh, that'd be kind of interesting.
Is Frank Miller still working?
No.
Okay, I was like,
he does Comic Cons. That's
okay.
About it.
That's his job. Like,
he's get the bag.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, like maybe my gut reaction was like I would like to see Phil Noto do more like interior Star Wars covers, like more interior artwork. So that's like my gut. Like, I don't know if he would be interested in writing here. Part of me is also like, I don't know, maybe we need to get some like really far afield here, like, pull in like some like Japanese mangaka, like, Taitai Kubo, who did Bleach or something like that.
Just get
some,
Oda.
Like, real man, like he's about to be done with One Piece in like 6-7 years. Maybe he'll want to do that.
Saying that for
like
honestly, the artist who did the third volume of the High Republic, Edge of Balance, I'd be interested to see more of their work.
Okay.
More Star Wars manga. This is a Star Wars manga advocate show now.
Exactly. Like, listen, we're a comics show, so might as well be jump that pond there. So
that's
go
definitely
all in.
our territory when and if it happens.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So everybody else step off. Yeah, no, super excited for those Peach Momoko covers and stories and a whole issue of Visions, especially because Ronin was so good. I'm really excited to see what's coming out of that. What do we got to look forward to next time, though?
Yeah, for issues coming in the next 2 weeks, we got Bounty Hunters 37, Mando Season 2, Episode 3, or Issue 3, Hyperspace Stories number 8, Star Wars 38, so we get more Lando on Jabba's Palace with Lobot, and then Dark Droids number 2, which is probably going to be, I'd imagine, the one we might want to talk about next time, but we'll definitely keep you all
Depends.
posted.
We could let it breathe a little bit and then cover a couple issues.
I feel like we could let it breathe a little bit and, maybe do a slight recap on some of the other mainline things, go back an arc or two. We'll find out. You'll find out.
You'll know on Twitter and Discord or X or whatever, Follow us somewhere and you'll probably know what we're talking about ahead of time.
According to the marketing team, it's Twitter. Youtini saying Twitter, so here we go.
Okay. X, formerly Twitter.
Exactly. Well, all right. Well, thank you so much for watching this week, guys. We really, really appreciate it. That is going to do it for this week's episode of The Cosmic Force. Do not forget to like and subscribe to the show right here on YouTube, where you can watch us every other Wednesday. We also encourage you to subscribe to our audio version of whatever podcast platform you listen to. You can follow us on Twitter and tweet at the show at Cosmic Force Show to stay informed about Star Wars comics happenings and what we're going to talk about next week or next show, just like we do every single time. You can follow the hosts individually at Parker Kirk. Caleb is at Caleb Lamneck. Jacob is at Jacob Bosch for review articles and news and the rest of the wide galaxy of Star Wars content. Be sure to visit Youtini.com. We encourage you to join our Youtini Discord community by going to Youtini.com/Discord. And you can help support the show, like I said earlier, by heading to Patreon.com/Youtini and start receiving exclusive perks starting at just $5 a month. A special thank you to Brian Dooley, Earl Q, Carl Sanders, Zach W, Michael Fry, and Raymond Basinski on our Jedi High Council, and James T, Ashley Ingalls, Colton Fife, Chris Carrizzo, and the return of Sally and Chris Eilerson on our Alliance High Command for their amazing support. Thank you again to Caleb and Jacob for hosting with me, and a special thanks to you, our listeners, for joining us. We truly appreciate you. See everybody in 2 weeks, and may the Force be with you.